Great. So this next section, you'll be hearing less from me and more from people on video, really. Uh, so we're looking at different contexts in which chaplaincy has uh, been proven to be fruitful and useful and exciting. But I thought I'd start off with a little bit of an example of chaplaincy in my journey. Although I was a community chaplain at a school for 17 years, I only got that role because I started as a chaplain in the arts. That wasn't my ambition or anything, but I was praying to God one day and saying, just where do you want to send me? What do you want me to do? And it's almost as if the response from God, and I'll talk about this in more detail later, was, what have you got to give? And at that time, I was probably best known as a writer or a dramatist. I still run a professional theatre group. And it's as if God is saying, well, use that in some way. So I offered myself as a chaplain to the local amateur dramatic organisation, which was quite big. They had about 200 members in their youth theatre and other sort of offshoots of that working in the community. And I became chaplain to that group of people. And it was really the gifts God had given me opened a gateway that allowed me to meet with and journey with people. And I think that's an important principle of chaplaincy. When you're thinking about it for mission, what are the gifts God has given you that will open a gate to allow you to accompany people on their journey? So missionally speaking, I thought, well, what am I going to do here? You know, how can I bring Jesus into the rehearsals for Oklahoma? Goodness me, Rogers and Hammerstein really got to me after a while, because that's all these amateur groups seem to want to do. And in the end, I said, oh, can I do some workshops with the groups? And we started to do workshops based on Bible stories. I would say, here's a stimulus for you. Here's a story for you. Make of it what you will, and we can talk about it and how it affects you. And slowly but surely, I introduced some parables of Jesus particularly, and asked people to create drama from that. And our discussions moved away from just the ordinary to the spiritual, and it was the start of our journey together. And my time, I'm still chaplain to this group even now, though it's been very difficult in the pandemic. And what it has meant is that I have journeyed with people through their ethical dilemmas. So those who wanted to go through the transgender switch, that whole issue there with all the difficulties that surround that. I was asked to accompany people on that journey. I was asked to work alongside people who were having issues with gender fluidity, with some of the young people who were having abortions, and so on. And all of these things came because I allowed God to reveal to me that what I had to give is something that was of value. And it opened up these gates. And I have to say, I mean, probably not the politically correct thing to say about chaplaincy, but more people have become Christians through my ministry in the arts than through any of my preaching that I have ever done anywhere in the country, and through any of my sort of one-to-one or small group work. It's through being chaplain to this group and opening up opportunities to explore faith issues and moral, emotional, and other issues as well. I just want to share with you, I'm not going to show it you all, you can have a look at it all later. This was a group of girls who got together and they said, can we explore this story together and do some drama from it? And they looked at the Good Samaritan. And they said, we don't feel safe in our parks at night. There have been girls raped in our town. We think this is Jesus telling us something about that situation. And they reimagined the Good Samaritan as the story of a rape. So it would probably carry a 15. So I'm going to come into the video part way through and take it through to the end. But this is a group of young people with no faith whatsoever, who by journeying with a chaplain through the issues that mattered to them, produced something that actually drew them closer to God. So I'll just...
Policeman.
So like a security guard from a factory, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe.
What did he do?
I cried. I asked for help. And he called me a drunken tart. Remember that, drunken tart. It must have been what I looked like.
Maybe. And then?
I passed out again. When I woke, it was early morning. There was a woman running expensive-looking trainers. She didn't see me, so I grabbed at her feet, made her scream. She saw me then and kicked me, right in the ribs.
We often have dawn joggers in the park. They usually run in pairs. Safer that way.
Not for me.
No. And then?
I lay there for a while. And then I tried to crawl. Didn't get far. Collapsed. There was this man.
What kind of man?
A tramp. Homeless. You know, the sort with a dog that you see around town. The sort that you steer away from. The ones you cross the road to avoid.
I know. What did he do?
He picked me up, lifted me into his arms.
He didn't touch you in any way?
No. He carried me. Through town, saw people staring. He went all the way through town with me in his arms till he came to the city general. He nearly dropped me on the steps. He must have been exhausted. I saw him talking to a doctor. They wanted him to stay, but he didn't. I guess he thought he'd be arrested.
I understand that.
But he saved me. They looked after me. And then a policeman came and now I'm here. Have you found him?
No, not yet. But we're still looking. So you'd know him again?
Yes. One of these days I'll see him on the street and I won't cross over. I'll go and sit with him and tell him what he's done. Say thank you.
I'd be careful, miss.
I know. After what he did.
I understand. Now, is there anything else?
No, that's it.
Now, are you ready to see your dad?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
These band-aids just won't do. I need a touch from you.
Three people in that video, three principals in that video. Two girls became Christians. boy became a Christian and is now doing his curacy in the Diocese of Leicester. And when you talk to them about what changed, it wasn't that I was preaching to them. They said that through the chaplaincy, through the work we did, they met Jesus. They discovered Jesus through the stories that they were working on as sort of stimuli for their drama. And they met Jesus through the other people they came into contact with me. Chaplaincy in the arts is amazing. I don't know what your local community theatre is or your local theatre is, but it is amazing. And through it, I've now got contact with the Royal Shakespeare Company and people there, and quite a lot of professional actors. And it's transformational because people are being given the opportunity to discover Jesus through a ministry that walks alongside without judgment. Because quite often the people I've met in the arts feel they are most judged by the church, and this is a chance to prove them wrong. So that's one example that I want you to think about, begin to reflect on. The next one is a little bit of a catch-all of everything, and it's the City of Derby's City Centre Chaplaincy project, which basically is, we'll do everything. And I just think chaplaincy in city centres is a fabulous mission, and the Derby one is a really good example. So.
Have you ever needed someone to talk to? Ever felt you're just another face in the crowd? Ever felt overwhelmed by the stresses of life and work? If you have, you're not alone. Many people find it increasingly difficult to juggle the demands of life, relationship difficulties, financial challenges, no job, pressure of a job, ill health. Sadly, all too familiar stories. We all need somewhere to turn to at times for support and friendship. Being part of a caring community is a key part of God's plan for human beings, and yet all around us we encounter people who feel isolated in a busy and fragmented world.
Back in 2009, a group of Christians got together to consider how we can best support people who don't come to church. We quickly realized that for many people, the place where they have their friends and relationships is the workplace. We also realized that when it comes to going out and about and meeting people where they are, that's exactly what Jesus did. We can so easily wait for people to come to us in our churches, and of course they do. But God is a God who sends us to search out the brokenhearted and those in need. We say, come. God says, go.
In February 2011, Derby City Centre Chaplaincy was set up to offer no strings attached pastoral care for the thousands of people who work in Derby City Centre.
I'm Jane. I work in human resources at Bennett's of Viringate up in the Cathedral Quarter. I think it's a fine balance between work and home. People have to come out to work. They're finding the hours to suit, that's difficult. And family life, fitting it all in together. I get a lot from Kevin. I always feel quite uplifted when Kevin's been. And I think, you know, Kevin coming into the workplace, people are always pleased to see him. And I probably talk to Kevin more at work than coming to church to find someone to talk to. And he's very easy to talk to and very helpful, yeah. I try to see him every time he comes in, and I feel quite uplifted when he's been. I personally gain a lot out of Kevin's visits.
I'm Jonathan Cooper, working at Hunter's, the furniture shop in the middle of Derby. Our chaplain's Peter, and he comes in and he mingles with the staff, and, you know, we really feel he is part of the family, if you wish. He comes in a very informal manner and talks away to everybody, and of course everybody's got pressures, both at work and at home. And Peter's somebody who can, if you wish, listen to these and give an impartial view. But equally, it's something that is done in total confidence. There certainly isn't any preaching involved, that's for certain. But it's just a really nice, impartial chat, if you wish, and people can get things off the chest.
Yes, I've been coming to Hunters now for about 4 years. And what I like especially about coming to Hunters is the freedom as a chaplain to be welcomed in. They can share with me any concerns freely, and that gives a freedom to be able to share things in a deeper kind of way, which is not always possible, and that's great.
Sandra is our chaplain in store. She visits us once a week, probably more if we'd like her to. She offers that friendly ear to everybody in store, no matter who they are. And we find often it's that impartial view that's really important to people. There is a service in M&S that people can use, they can talk to, but it's nice to have a face-to-face contact with someone who is separate to M&S as an organisation. We also have a number of employees who do have health problems in the store, and people who have family members with health problems. And I think where we found Sandra to be really add value is just to add be a friendly ear to those people in their hour of need.
As the chaplaincy has grown, so have the areas in which chaplains serve. From the initial focus supporting those working in the retail sector, there are now chaplains working in 5 other sectors: business, entertainment, sport, education and social care. Chaplains come from different churches and have very different gifts, but they all share a calling to reflect God's light and love to the people who work and shop in the city centre. Our belief is simply that God loves Derby and the people here, and we want to share that love in practical ways.
The biggest pressure for residents coming into a nursing home is the transition from going from their own home to a nursing home. So as much as we like to class it as their own home, and it is, it's just not the same. So they need support in that big move. Anna, who comes in to see the residents, she's happy to have one-to-one meetings with them and discuss how they're feeling, their thoughts, and whether she can do anything to help other than the nursing staff.
I believe personally it's very important for our residents. A lot of them are elderly, they're not able to go to church, and church would have been part of their lives years ago. All our residents are 60 and above. So I do believe it's a vital service. One of our residents, their relative actually said when they came to Brookfields, they could actually feel the Christian elements here, which I found very, very encouraging.
So what kind of people does God call into chaplaincy?
My name is Robin. I'm the chaplain to the Derby Trailblazers, which is Derby's basketball team. My son started going to the youngest age training group on a Saturday morning. It was sat there in the bleachers watching him train that rekindled my own passion for playing. And so I contacted the club chairman and he showed me where I could get involved myself and start playing again. But also while I was there, I said to him about the possibility of becoming a chaplain to the team. Like all chaplaincy, it's about being there for people. So I go to as many home matches as I can. I can't make the away matches. But it's just being there and talking to volunteers and players and coaches and staff and just anyone who's there really, and just chatting and being a friendly face and being there for people to come and say hi to. And obviously the players take it to heart, you know, whether they win or lose. And they can get really down, you know, in the moments after a match. And so it's really great just to be there and support them. So whether we win or lose, I get to be there for people.
So I just want to recommend to you the City Centre Chaplaincy. It's a great way that you can be involved in caring and supporting the people of Derby right where they're at. So if you have a heart to be contributing to the needs of others and sharing and caring for them, then why don't you get involved in the project as soon as possible?
I hope you're getting from just looking at that very brief overview of one city's chaplaincy, the breadth of opportunity. Also, what is amazing about Derby is the welcome that is accorded to chaplains in all areas, and the people, the breadth of people involved in chaplaincy in that city centre chaplaincy is remarkable. All ages, all giftings, working in those areas which they feel best equipped for, really, in lots of ways. My wife always says being chaplain to Marks and Spencer is a dream job, and she'd really love that. And being chaplain to Derby Trailblazers would be my dream job because I'm a big basketball fan. So So that's city centre. I'm going through these quite quickly. The next one I want to just very quickly share with you is somebody local to the Diocese of Norfolk, and some of you will know James, talking about schools, which is certainly the area I'm most linked with. And this is James.
Hello, my name is James Hawksworth and I'm the lead evangelist for the Church Army's Centre of Mission in King's Lynn. The idea behind a Centre of Mission is that it becomes a hub and a resource within the community where churches and others interested in partnering with us can be equipped and supported to reach out to those that find themselves on the margins of our society. One of the greatest needs within King's Lynn can be found amongst our secondary school age young people who find themselves in an ever-increasing world of isolation and frustration and despair. We've begun, therefore, to work with secondary schools to develop a chaplaincy system that seeks to support and encourage faith amongst young people. The way that this works at the moment is through a referral system that begins with the pastoral managers within each year group. Then I pick the young people up from their classroom once a week to play Uno. This builds trust and banter so that their relationship grows, and from their support, listen, encourage and challenge them, depending on what's required at the time. I remember when I first started meeting with a year 7 girl to play Uno, and I happened to ask her a question about her siblings, if she had any, that kind of thing. And she looked at me straight in the eyes and she just said, "We're not here to talk about family. We're here to play cards." I met with this girl about 12 weeks before she started to talk about her family and the tragic story of her life with neglect and the suicide attempt of one of her parents, a successful suicide attempt. It is from here, and only if I think that they fit with the ethos of the group, that I invite them to a lunch club. This lunch club is designed by them with regular checks to make sure that it remains owned by them. One of the beautiful moments I had with the lunch club was with a group of year 8 girls who were playing games, and a year 7 girl I invited turned up, and she was hovering in the doorway, fearful to enter because it was filled with older students. And the group of year 8 girls playing games approached her, put their arm around her and ushered her to a seat. And then they dealt her some cards, explained the rules and really welcomed her in. She smiled at me bashfully and became a regular attender of that group. The next step of this journey is to invite them to a youth group beyond the school walls, with the same ethos as before, developing ownership of the group through including them in the setup with regular checks to make sure it remains their group. It's here that we can really begin to explore life issues and faith together. The vision for the Centre of Mission is that it will become a place to explore, worship and share faith in Christ together, all done through the powerful ministry of chaplaincy and pastoral support. The Centre of Mission in King's Lynn is also here to support you too, who may want to explore ministry in schools this way. So please contact me if you think I can be of help. We can then begin to explore together. I'm sure Tim will pass on my details if you ask him nicely. God bless you all.
That's great. Schools is obviously a really big area. It's the area I'm most involved with. And in the sheet that you'll get after this, there'll be lots of links to people like James, to Centre for Chaplaincy and Education, to CYM, who I work with, who can help resource this whole area of chaplaincy in schools. Those of you who are in the Anglican Church, you'll know that recently there's been a report on further education chaplaincy and engagement of the church in FE, and that's a real area of need and opportunity, and hopefully people will be really interested in that. And again, there'll be links to that report in the sheets you'll get. In preparing for this, I did a couple of interviews, and I was trying to get some local people engaged in looking at chaplaincy. And the next interview is with a guy called Matt Rogers. Some of you may know, he lives in Norwich, and he has just moved into the area from London. He's part of an organisation called KIC, who have discovered that chaplaincy through sport is particularly effective and fruitful, and particularly good engaging young men. And for those of you who've wrestled with the problem of what happens when your young people want to play football on Sunday mornings rather than come to church, his work as chaplain and working with KIC has actually got the church to embrace Sunday morning football as part of their missional outreach. So this is just a very brief interview with Matt, hopefully. Okay, welcome, Matt. Thank you very much for joining us. How about telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got into what you do, and a bit of your background?
Of course. So my name's Matt, and how I got into KIC and their work is I played for a church football team. So about 4 or 5 years ago, an email was then sent round from KIC to these football teams. It then got passed on to me by a friend who thought it could be something I'd be quite interested in. So I then got in contact. I thought it's a mixture of sport and religion as well, and I thought, yeah, this sounds right up my street, I guess. So then got in contact. I started off, I was at university studying sport at the time as well, and it ended up linking in quite well with that. I was able to go along and start shadowing coaches to gain experience. And then, yeah, it was a great opportunity for me to then, as I said earlier, incorporate sport and my beliefs and take them into schools, teach young people sport, and then also do it by sharing different values, godly values and Christian values that these young people can use kind of in their day-to-day lives, really. So yeah, that's something I've loved doing, and yeah, I really enjoy everything that KIC kind of does on a day-to-day basis.
Brilliant. And I know you mentioned you go into schools. Do you ever do stuff in the community as well as in a school?
Yeah, so one thing that KIC do is they have a thing called academies that link to local churches. So it could be a football academy, it could also be sort of a dance academy. And so I helped out a football academy which ran on a Saturday morning. And so you kind of get maybe 15 to 20 young people that would come along, and they kind of similar to what we did in schools in one sense, where we can let them play football, maybe do a few different football drills. But then there's different slots kind of throughout the sessions where we can sit them down and maybe tell them a story from the Bible that may link to different values, like maybe persevering, or trying to think of some of the other ones off the top of my head. But persevering maybe being a good one, where you can take a story from the Bible and then link it to something they may be able to relate to, a footballing story or a sporting story that they can then potentially understand it a bit better. And it's just starting to introduce them to what we do a bit more, and also into the Bible and those different stories, which have been a really good way to break it down for them.
Brilliant. And I know that KIC, working in schools and in community, have begun to introduce the idea of chaplaincy. How is that working? What does that look like?
Yeah, so a few schools around the London area where KIC is kind of formally based have taken on these chaplaincy roles. So a few of our coaches are in there doing that sort of thing. The response has been great from schools in that sense. And it's just an opportunity for young people in school who may be struggling with different aspects of their life. It's just been a great opportunity for them to just have some time out and someone they can talk to, someone they can trust to help them. But then it's also been a great way for the coaches to bring a biblical influence into things as well, when kind of maybe say to these young people, okay, this situation can be dealt with in certain ways, and maybe look into the Bible or other ways that these young people can relate to as well, to help them deal with what they're going through. So yeah, schools have been really grateful for the coaches that have gone in to primarily secondary schools, although a couple of primary schools as well are starting to open up to chaplaincy. And
just pause that there. You can watch the whole of it a bit later on. Matt's just moved to Norwich. KIC have a vision to put sports chaplains across the country. They've extended into about 17 schools in the Midlands area. They're looking at the northeast of England, the northwest of England, and Norfolk. So if you're interested in more of what they're doing and how they do it and the training they offer, that's something to look at. I'm running a little bit behind time, unfortunately, but I do want to share the next interview with you, which is with the Mission to Seafarers, which perhaps isn't an organization that immediately springs to mind, but they have a most amazing ministry to people at sea, fishermen and so on. And also they have become one of the most innovative chaplaincies that I know of in the realm of the digital, particularly during the pandemic. So I'll show you as much of this as I can before we go back into groups. But this is Ben Bailey, who leads advocacy for Mission to Seamen, and he's really worth listening to. So Ben, lovely to see you. So what does chaplaincy look like in your context then? Because it's so different to school chaplaincy, hospital chaplaincy, or whatever. What does it look like?
Absolutely. A lot of it is extending the hand of friendship and extending the hand of hospitality. So we have a network of 200 port chaplains across 50 countries, and they spend most of their time visiting seafarers on board their ships when they come into port. So in an average year, when we're not dealing with a pandemic, we would make somewhere in the region of around 50 to 60,000 ship visits in a year. And that would involve the chaplains and our teams of ship visitors and volunteers going on board, speaking to the seafarers, very often welcoming them to the port, and really trying to help them maximize their time in port. So sometimes it can just be the fact that we're providing some assistance, some practical assistance, such as transportation into town, such as access to medical care, for example. Other times, seafarers might have specific concerns about their families. They might have questions of faith. They might have questions about their own work, the personal issues that you and I deal with on a day-to-day basis. But we are very fortunate in that we have our family, we have our friends, we have our churches, we have support structures that can assist us. But for the world's seafarers, and there's about 1.5 million of them, they don't have that when they're in port. And so our teams are there first and foremost, really just to be that friend whilst they're in ports, to assist them in anything that they need.
That's amazing. And it seems a very, very transient relationship So how did chaplains maintain those relationships if it's just visiting a port and then off again?
Well, that is indeed the nature of the job, and very often we will not see the same seafarer again. So we've invested heavily in the chaplaincy models that we do in order to try and resolve seafarers' issues in a set period of time. But also we have that broad network. So if seafarers do have an ongoing concern, or perhaps there's been a bereavement on board, then we will work out where the ship is going, and then we'll speak to our colleagues in that next port and ask them to make a ship visit and to provide that sort of continuity of care as best we can. But yes, you're right, very much so. Our chaplaincy is fleeting. We might be lucky to spend an hour on a particular vessel with a group of seafarers. We might be lucky enough to see them again if they're on a repeat voyage, but very often it's a case of, we're never too sure, I guess, of the fruits of our labour, because we don't necessarily get to see them again.
It does sound amazing. One of the questions that I often ask chaplains is relating to the image of Jesus they share, and somebody who's in a school for 7 years walking beside the student has an opportunity to show Jesus in all his different sort of aspects, really. But somebody who's at the deathbed of somebody in a hospital, or visiting for an hour in a prison, or in your case for an hour, what would you say is your priority picture of Jesus, image of Jesus you want to leave with the fishermen and the seafarers?
Gosh, I think it's just one that they are loved and that they're valued. And certainly in our industry, and we are part of the industry, we're seen very much as part of the industry. I think we're probably the only industry where whenever they're having high level meetings, they will automatically include organizations like the mission. They just see us as part of them. I think for us, it is about, it is that idea that seafarers are loved, that they're cherished, that they're valued. And so often in our industry, they forget that. Seafarers are spending 9 months at least away from home. The pandemic has made it significantly worse. Many of them are 16 months into what should have been an 11-month contract, and they should now be well and truly home with their families. And so they're working incredibly hard all the time. And so for us, it's about that reassurance, it's about welcoming, and it's about saying it doesn't matter who you are, we're here for you, and anything that we can do for you, it is our honour and our pleasure to do it. So yes, I think it is that reminding people that they are loved and that they have value.
That's brilliant, thank you. One of the main reasons I got in touch with you was the way you sort of grasped modern technology and working in the digital, and this idea of chat to a chaplain, that is very much part of what you do. Would you like to talk us through how you've embraced digital chaplaincy, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, what I should say is that face-to-face chaplaincy is and will always be our primary focus of ministry, and this is not intended to replace it. And really, our digital chaplaincy came out of the pandemic. The restrictions started to come in. Our teams were not able necessarily to go on board. We're still not able to go on board. We're having to minister to seafarers at the top of the gangway and speak to them in the open air in order to protect ourselves and also the seafarers in question. So we were desperately trying to find new ways of engaging with them and trying to provide something also for our volunteers, many of whom are of a certain age. They themselves were at risk of the pandemic. And so we thought, well, actually, let's try and provide a 24/7, using our global network, we have the privilege to do that, 24/7 access to a chaplain. So we run on our website, Chat to a Chaplain, as you've said, and it's exactly that. We have 30 chaplains online at any one time. They work around the clock. We have people from different nationalities, so we have lots of different languages available. And it's primarily a resource for seafarers to find out information. And it has opened our eyes to some of the difficulties, I think, of doing this particular kind of ministry in the digital space, and I'm sure we'll come on to that in a moment. But certainly we wanted to try and provide something for seafarers to use, and it has been slowly growing. So at the moment we have around about 200 inquiries every month from seafarers asking for information. Very often it's about their local port. Sometimes they'll be using it to express frustration at the fact that they're still working. Sometimes they'll be asking us for prayers. Sometimes they'll be asking us for very practical assistance. So it's been a very good reflection, I guess, of what our chaplains do on a day-to-day basis.
It does sound really good, and the way you've sort of jumped into that is a really good thing. How quickly did it take for you to train up your chaplains to use it, to get the network running and all of that kind of thing?
It was relatively straightforward, I have to say, and bar a few technical hitches. What I should say is that it has proven to be a very expensive ministry outlay. And what was quite interesting is that many of our chaplains were saying, well, you know, I have Facebook groups, I have WhatsApp groups, where I have got contacts with seafarers that have been in my port before. So I'm speaking to them through that medium. But we were looking for something which was universal that we could overlay across the entire mission network. So we spoke to the teams and we asked them whether or not they were interested and whether they were willing to take part. And for many of them, they were eager to do it. But I think there was a sense of frustration at the beginning because we all thought to some extent that we would be overwhelmed with people wanting to talk to us. And of course, that didn't happen in the early days. It was very much just kind of sat there waiting. We use a particular program called Zendesk, which is a very popular chat program. If anyone has ever bought something in somewhere like Curry's and you go onto the website and up pops something saying, you know, are you looking for a fridge freezer? Because you're on that page, you can have that conversation, and it's pretty much exactly the same technology. So from a training perspective, it was fairly straightforward in terms of how to use it. But what became quite clear fairly early on was that we were having to vet those conversations in a way which we would never normally have to do.
Going to pause, Ben, there. You can watch the rest of the interview later. I was really blown away by the work that they do. And Ben goes on to talk about particularly the work of the chaplaincy in Great Yarmouth, which is part of the diocese, in Norwich, and their need for volunteers and support and people. You might be feeling called to a ministry such as that, but also what they've done with digital chaplaincy and the way they've created it, even though it did cost tens of thousands of pounds to set up, I think is quite innovative, and they're one of the best examples I've come across of digital chaplaincy. I'm going to stop there because you've had loads and loads of people sharing, and just give you a few moments in groups to just reflect with one another. Don't have a specific question particularly, just reflect on what you have heard, and is it sparking any new ideas or thoughts in your mind for your community? So back to Tim.
Yeah, great. We're just going to have 5 minutes, okay? So obviously only do quick introductions. You'll be in slightly different groups, hopefully, so you're going to meet some new people, make some new connections. So 5 minutes, anything that popped up for you in those videos. So I'm going to open the rooms and just join when you see the little box come up. Have fun. Well, welcome back, everybody. We're going to go for a break in a moment, but again, if there's any kind of reflections that came from just that brief conversation, or maybe you didn't have a chance to say anything, but you just got it bubbling up inside you, pop it in the chat. Not in bold, because there isn't a bold function, silly me, but if you do it in capitals, it'd be easy for me to spot. There's been just a little bit on the chat that's been asking about, have you got just any basic information? Where can I do some reading? Again, Nigel's going to put a resource sheet together for those of you, if you're an absolute novice and thinking, I've just no idea where to start, there'll be that. And for those of you who want to go a bit deeper, again, there'll be other links. All the videos that Nigel has shown us, if you want to watch them in the entirety and have a look at them, he's going to post them on his kind of social media feed. And again, we'll give links so you can get that. Again, when the resource sheet comes out after the webinar, it won't be immediately, about like early next week. And remember, if you look in the chat, and there's Nigel's email address. If you have a specific question that you don't feel gets answered, you can send it to Nigel and he'll answer it as and when he's able. But yeah, we're going to take a brief break now. So a quick 5 minutes, so because we're a little bit behind schedule, but well, I think we'll catch up. So let's take 5 minutes and we'll see you in a moment. Okay, bye.